Okay, so it's 2 minutes after 6, so I think we can go ahead and get us started on this meeting. Just want to welcome you all and thank you for joining today's community workshop. Hopefully you find this a good opportunity, good learning opportunity if you haven't had a chance to review the SSMP annual report from the progress that was made during 2021. This is where you need to be and get some updates on what's in that report and what the team is working on and how we envision the program moving forward. So thank you all for joining. Thank you all for tuning in. Looking forward to a really fruitful conversation. And if we can go ahead and hit the next slide, please. Okay, so again, our workshop today, it's aimed towards presenting the 2022 annual report, which encompasses all the progress that happened during 2021. So let's hit the next slide, please. And I'll just provide some brief instructions on how to use a Zoom webinar, and also some instructions regarding raising your hand, enabling translation, and ways that you can communicate during this meetings or use a Q&A box. So I'll be just for the sake of having a better communication here, I'll be making the same statement both in English and Spanish for those that are barely tuning in or are about to switch to the interpretation channel for the Spanish translation. So if you please go ahead and select your preferred language, choose English or Spanish, so you can hit both the meeting or the webinar in the same language throughout its way, because it might be times that you might be hearing, if you don't select the channel, you might be hearing if somebody speaks in Spanish or somebody speaks in English, you might be hearing the other language. So please make your selection at the bottom of your screen on the interpretation globe and select your language. Daré las mismas instrucciones en español para los que nos acompañan el día de hoy que prefieran usar el lenguaje en español. En la parte inferior de su pantalla, en el globo de interpretación, ahí podrá usted seleccionar la opción que usted elija. En este caso sería español, para escuchar la junta en español desde el principio. Le recomiendo seleccione el lenguaje en español para que no escuche el lenguaje, la junta en los dos lenguajes. If we can hit the next slide, please. Okay, and also we have closed captioning available. If you wish to use it, it's also at the bottom of your screen next to the interpretation glove. And you can click it there and you will enable the closed captioning. Also, we have the Q&A box enabled for you to ask your questions directly, and also allow for get an answer through the Q&A box. Okay, and also we will have multiple public comment periods throughout our presentation today, and there will be times for you to raise your hand, which you will find that option at the bottom of your screen, and we will call out the names as we see them populating on our screen. Also, if you're joining over the phone, when the time for Q&A comes, please select or please press on your phone #2, and that will let us know that you wish to participate during the meeting. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, and just a quick reminder to how to select the raise your hand option. So click on the bottom of your screen, raise your hand, or press #2 to enable or to let us know that you wish to participate. And please, we do ask that we limit our comments to 3 minutes. We will have, again, multiple periods for Q&A. So, and at the end, we'll also have a lengthier public comment period for you to use and address your questions. So the way the meeting, it's if we can hit the next slide, please. Just a quick overview of today's presentation. We'll present the Salton Sea overview and program priorities with also the purpose of this annual report. And we will have a Q&A or public comment period after this section. Also, we'll present on the Salton Sea Management Program projects, the partnerships and community engagement, and the status of planning activities. So again, after each of these sections, there will be a Q&A or comment period. We'll have about 10-15 minutes for Q&A after this section. So we just ask that you keep your comments related to the topic at hand or to what just been presented. And again, at the very end, we'll have a broader public comment period or Q&A period if you wish to address any of the discussed items or any other topics that you wish to share or ask from the SSMP team at the end of this meeting. So with this, we'll go ahead and get started with our presentation, and I'll kick it off to my colleague, Mario Llanos.
Hey, good evening, everyone. My name is Mario Llanos. I serve as the Deputy Assistant Secretary for the California Natural Resources Agency. Happy to be here with all of you to provide an in-depth overview of the Salton Sea Management Program's 2022 annual report on behalf of California Natural Resources Agency, the Department of Water Resources, and the California Department of Fish and Wildlife, collectively known as the Salton Sea Management Program, or the SSMP team. Just a little something different that we added in here, and one thing that we did on this presentation is add actual photos from our annual report on the title slides, so you can follow along with the actual report or go back and do so when we post this presentation on our webpage. Another thing you'll see as we go through the presentation is a text box with the chapter and a page number. This text box will normally appear at the bottom of the presentation slides and shows where in the annual report you'll find more detailed information about the slide topic or the photo that's being shown. I hope some of you will find this helpful. As mentioned, we do plan to post a recording of this meeting and the actual slide deck in a PDF format. Next slide, please.
And Mario, sorry for interrupting. I just want to acknowledge that we do have a raised hand from somebody calling in. If we can enable that person, or if you need any assistance, please let us know.
They should be able to unmute now.
And this is caller ending 0469. You have a raised hand.
It looks like they are unmuted, but I still don't hear them.
Okay, I'll go ahead and continue on, and then maybe at the end of our this section, we can go back to this person. Does that work?
Yes, thank you, Mario.
Okay. Next slide, please. So normally we go right into our presentations, assuming the audience is generally familiar with the Salton Sea, and these are community meetings, and we hope to continue to get new attendees tuning in for the first time. Therefore, we decided to place a few high-level slides with a brief history of the Salton Sea and how we got here. Today, Salton Sea is located in the lower basin of ancient Lake Cahuilla, which filled and dried periodically over thousands of years as the Colorado River changed course. It most recently refilled between 1905 and 1907 and has been sustained by runoff from irrigated farmland and other inflows. Water management decisions, less water from Mexico, and impact of climate change have reduced inflows to Salton Sea. Inflows to the sea have decreased and are less than the rate of evaporation. This has resulted in a loss of lake volume, leading to exposed lake bed. Salton Sea has also become saltier and habitat has been lost. Next slide, please. So Salton Sea's current challenges are dust from exposed lake bed, which may affect air quality and public health for surrounding communities, increased salinity in the waters of the sea, and it's unable to sustain many forms of aquatic life. Habitat values are being lost, including for several bird species on the Pacific Flyway. Next slide, please. So what's happening to improve these conditions? Well, right now, collaborative efforts with the Salton Sea Management Program are underway to implement projects. You'll learn more about these projects later in the presentation. The state is committed to construct 30,000 acres of habitat and dust suppression projects by 2028 through the SSMP 10-year plan. Currently, 6,000 acres of project work are now underway. An additional 8,000 acres of projects are planned for implementation by 2024. There's a long-range plan being developed this year to provide vision beyond the 10-year plan. When again, we'll go into more detail as we move along. in this presentation. Next slide, please. So this might be repetitive and you'll see this throughout the annual report, but these are our SSMP key program priorities. And that's to implement the SSMP's phase 1 10-year plan. Also to strengthen partnerships and engagement to inform our 10-year plan and long-term plan. Develop and submit the long-range plan by the end of 2022, and to continue to build the SSMP team to deliver on these state commitments. Next slide. So what's the purpose of the annual report? We'll go into that in the next slide, please. So this report provides updates on the SSMP's activities in 2021 and future actions to achieve the goals outlined in State Water Resources Control Board stipulated water order. Contains milestones completed, project acres completed, upcoming projects, status of financial resources and permits, departures from targeted acreages, and plans to address deficiencies. This 2022 annual report provides this information, an overview of engagement and partnership activities and more. Also included are a list of references and informative and complementary appendices, figures, and tables. And this concludes my section of the presentation. I'll turn it over to Miguel for questions.
Thank you, Mario. And yes, so this is the time if you wish to ask a question or have a comment regarding what Mario just presented on the overview of the Salton Sea Management Program. Please go ahead and raise your hand using the raise hand feature at the bottom of your screen, or pressing #2 on your phone. And I do still see caller 0469 with the raised hand. Not sure if you were able to unmute yourself. Okay, I do see a hand by Michael Cohen. If we can go ahead and allow him to speak. And you should be able to unmute yourself, Michael.
Thanks. And can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Thanks. So thanks for the quick overview. And you mentioned, Mario, a little bit about the program objectives. I'm wondering if you could speak a little bit more broadly about the state's vision overall in terms of creating habitat, functional habitat, rather than it was kind of a narrow set of objectives you laid out, but maybe talk a little bit more about the state hopes to see in the Salton Sea. Thanks.
You kind of tailed off. Sorry, I caught it the beginning of it. So if I could speak more to the state's objective for meeting the 30,000 acres, is that what you said? Sorry, I didn't hear very well.
Right. Sorry. More broadly about the state's overall objectives or goals and vision for the Salton Sea. So you laid out the specific milestones, meeting, implementing, building up the team, partnerships, but really what speaking a little bit more towards the broad vision of what the state is trying to achieve at the Salton Sea.
Yeah. Arthur, I see your hand raised. Do you want to chime in there?
Yeah, I can take a stab at that. Yeah, thanks, Michael. I really appreciate the question. So I think as part of the 10-year plan, as Mario mentioned, we're committed to implementing 30,000 acres of habitat and dust suppression projects. And as you know, Mike, of that 30,000 acres, 15,000 acres has to be aquatic habitat. So we are committed to moving forward with those projects to get to the 15,000 acres. As currently planned, and and folks will see once we release our 10-year plan NEPA document that I'm hoping that will be released here in the coming weeks. We have various alternatives that look at a range of different habitat types, ranging from aquatic habitat to wetland habitat to vegetation enhancement projects. So that'll be part of our 10-year plan. And again, at a minimum of those 30,000 acres, 15,000 will be habitat projects. In addition to that, we're also advancing our long-range plan. And there's specific objectives that have been identified as part of our long range plan. And maybe perhaps James can kind of weigh in here and expand a little bit on those specific objectives of the long range plan. James, if you're on, if you don't mind, it might be good for you to go ahead and speak to the vision that we've discussed and identified as part of our long range planning process.
Yeah, I think our vision is relatively clear throughout 2028, but what's not clear is what happens beyond 2028. And to date, we will cover this in more detail once we get to the long range plan section. But to date, we're really just forming ourselves around a suite of objectives, and those objectives are aimed at providing for large amounts of resilient aquatic habitat, aimed at improving water quality and aimed at improving air quality. And there are various ways in which we might accomplish that, and we're exploring a broad variety of ways to accomplish that. And I think the long range plan that we submit in December will start to shape the vision for what the state sees as the future vision for the Salton Sea.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Michael, for that question, and thank you, team, for responding. I think can we go ahead and let caller 0469 try to unmute? I think we were able to unmute for a second there.
Looks like they're unmuted again.
Johnny Wheels. Hello.
Go ahead.
Hey, Johnny, this is Johnny Wheels. Could you guys be specific? Introduce yourself before you answer the question. Tell us where you work and what your goals are, whatever, so I can understand who I'm listening to, please.
Thank you, Johnny. Yeah, I think it's a fair ask. And well, my name is Miguel Hernandez, and I'm the Public Affairs Officer with the Natural Resources Agency. And you just heard from Assistant Secretary Arturo Delgado, also my colleagues, Deputy Assistant Secretary Mario Llanos, also with the Natural Resources Agency, and James Newcomb from the Water Resources Agency. So the Department of Water Resources, and we'll keep that in mind as we move along with our presentations. And thank you for that, Johnny.
Thank you.
Okay, I do see a couple of hands up. If we can allow Jazz Phillips to unmute.
Thank you. My name is Jasmine Phillips. I'm a Salton Sea resident, and I would like some clarification on the definition of habitat and how it's going to meet that 50% habitat requirement. What I understood from Arturo Delgado is that the habitat consists of aquatic, wetland, and revegetation. So specifically, my question is regarding the revegetation of the playa in the Salton City communities that currently includes the straw bales. Is that included in the 50% aquatic habitat requirement?
Yeah, Jasmine, this is Arturo Delgado. Yeah, thanks for the question. So the stipulated water order is very specific about what qualifies as habitat. And if my understanding is correct here, what qualifies as habitat is aquatic habitat as well as wetland habitat. Veg enhancement would not qualify as part of that 50%. So to answer your question specifically, our veg enhancement project located down the community, near the community of Salton City would not meet the definition of habitat under the stipulated water order.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that, because I had some concerns because I noticed in the project description, it was described as adding habitat value. So I just wanted to be sure that that would not be taking the place of the aquatic habitat and the wetlands. Thanks again.
You bet.
Thank you, Jasmine. If we can allow to unmute Jim Dax.
Hi, just a basic question in terms of, are you looking at finding a new source of water for the sea to make up for the evaporation and the decrease in the input? That was it.
Thank you, Mr. Dax. And yeah, not sure if you're familiar with it, but there's an independent review panel that's taking a closer look at water importation proposals. As a matter of fact, they held a meeting yesterday evening to to discuss a little bit of the screening report, this initial phase of looking at those proposals that came in back in 2017 and back in last year, just around fall 2021. And they're looking at importing water, and what's if it's developing this initial screening report and also letting people know what are the proposals made the first screening. So that's what another source of water that's potentially being looked into by this independent review panel. And this independent review panel will develop a report that eventually will make it to the long range planning committee that are looking into future options for the long-term sustainability of the sea. And my colleague James Newcomb will be addressing some of that on his presentation.
Okay.
Okay, and I think we can go ahead and move on to our next section.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Excellent. Well, thank you for having me. It's a great honor to be part of this meeting. My name is Vivian Maisonneuve. I'm the Salton Sea Program Manager at the Department of Water Resources. Our job basically at the department is to build the projects under the direction and in cooperation with the Department of Fish and Wildlife and under the direction of the Natural Resources Agency in and around the Salton Sea for the 10-year plan. So what I'm going to talk about can be found in the second chapter of the of our annual plan. And so for more details, of course, I would ask you to refer to this chapter in particular. The next slide, please. So before we start, I'd like to briefly talk about land access. So it's it's a major component of our planning effort at the Salton Sea. And we are committed to collaborate with a landowner to get access to the sea. You can see on the map here, that's the patchwork of land ownership. And unfortunately, our project usually encompass several landowners at a time. So it takes time to negotiate those land access agreements. But of course, we are committed and really working diligently with landowners to make it happen. It's really unfortunate that we do not have, as the state doesn't have a lot of land currently at the sea. Next, please. So first, I'd like to talk about the enter and dust suppression projects that we've completed in 2020 and 2021. We've completed small projects as soon as we got access at the south end of the sea on the Species Conservation Habitat Project on both sides of the New River. I will talk about the Species Conservation Habitat later into my presentation. But very quickly here, wanted to mention that we've completed 755 acres in 2020. So you can see the New River West, the Bouchard Road, and the New River East on the map where those were completed. As a reminder, the SCH site is located in the southwest corner of the Salton Sea on either side of the New River. And on top of that, once we've awarded the contract for the construction of the Species Conservation Habitat, the project builder additionally stabilized 500 acres of dust of area for the construction purpose. Meanwhile, also we've completed the interception ditch on east and western side of the New River, and that accounts for about 22 acres of habitat at the moment, and it's already thriving habitat that where pupfish are there and provide connectivity among the drains for the pupfish, and birds are also using it at the moment. Next slide, please. So very quickly here, I'd like to talk about the ongoing and future projects. So work continues on habitat and vegetation enhancement projects around the sea. As you can see, we working on all those different areas, the south end, where the SCH's project is located. We also working, as you know, on the east side where we started, for example, Clubhouse, which I want to talk about a little later. And we also have the North Lake projects that we'll be also talking about a little bit more, and the North Lake pilot project that you've heard of around the North Shore area. Not to mention, of course, the east side of the Salton Sea, where additional dust suppression and habitat projects are ongoing. Next slide, please. So the species conservation and habitat project. So that's like our major effort currently. It's 4,100 acre project that will create a network of pond and wetland for habitat for fish and birds. The primary objective, of course, is always in our program is to prevent dust from being emissive for health purposes. But this project, of course, will provide habitat for fish-eating birds as well. Covering the playa with water will definitely prevent it, but it add this very important additional value of deep water habitat to sustain a community of fish that the Pacific Flyway can rely on. There will also be plenty of area for shorebirds to thrive, and we'll also provide islands to allow to prevent predation from happening. The location is important for us because a lot of that area in the southern end of the sea is exposed early due to the fact that it's a very shallow area and always is at the Salton Sea around the rivers. Next slide, please. So here's some pictures of the ongoing construction at the SCH. We have on the first picture the causeway, where at the end of that causeway will be located our pump station for the saline intake. This causeway is a mile out at the sea and is built at the depth of about 6 feet currently. On top of that, we will trench and excavate a trench to take water so that the project will be sustainable without any additional work to be done, and we can keep pumping salt water as the sea is receding. On the other side, we are looking at the new river diversion to allow the construction of the intake structure for the fresher water of the for the SCH. So just as a reminder, the SCH will be a saline habitat that will be mixing, and that's why we need basically both water. We need the water from the Salton Sea, but also water from the new river that will be mixed, and to provide habitat for tilapia and fish that birds will be feeding on. Next, please. Here are the pictures of excavation of deep channel. What we also do in that case is we're using the dirt that was excavating to create berms. So as this dirt is excavated, we let the dirt dry, the soil dry, and that allows us, of course, to build the berm and keep it at the right moisture until it gets compacted, and to allow us for less seepage and of course for ideal compaction, so we can eventually travel on that levee. So it takes basically about 4 stages between the first time we pick up the first bucket of dirt until it's manipulated all the way for it to get to the berm. So it's kind of a fastidious process. And at first we weren't even sure that it would work, but fortunately we were able to do it. And as you can see with the causeway, we're able to actually build in the wet. So that's also, we had some pretty good surprises as we were building the SCH and made some big wins as far as engineering and finding the right way to build it. On the other end of the slide, you can see a construction of an island that's ongoing. And as a scale, you can see that we have a tractor working there. So it's a fairly big island. Those islands will provide basically a roosting habitat for the birds, and will also, of course, protect them from predators at this point. Next, please. So very quickly, I would also like to talk about our vegetation enhancement projects. So like we mentioned earlier, vegetation enhancement will add an additional value, of course, of habitat, because after all, those are native species that we'll be using. But the function there is to really prevent, first and foremost, the playa from becoming, the lake bed from being emissive. So we have several actions that we're taking. Of course, we have the planting, seeding, and natural recruitment. Then we create swales to make sure that we can capture any rainwater that we can have, or any irrigation, so that the plants can survive, or set them in the best position possible to survive and capture that water. And of course, we set the straw bales and grass bales. And I know at the summit, I mentioned hay bales. So I just want to mention that we are not using hay bales. We're only using straw bales, and to basically protect the plant from the wind erosion, and also, basically that's the main function. It's really to protect the plant from wind erosion and facilitate the growth of that plant. So we've already started the work, and you can see that a clubhouse we've started. We will keep progressing our clubhouse. The planting is ongoing, and also this year we'll start chili wash in the incoming year. And Bombay Beach will also happen this year, and in total we're going to work around 1,700 acres of land at this point. Next, please. All right, what's the principle of this? So the way we are currently working is we install the straw bales on the lake bed, and that controls the dust, first of all. So as soon as we put those straw bales, it allows us to control the dust. But the ultimate goal is, of course, to have plants so that this project is sustainable. So therefore, that's why we organize those bales in a fashion like along the shoreline, just like the natural vegetation is upland, to give them the most chance to those plants for survival. Of course, we don't know if that's going to take right now, but we're doing our best, and by irrigating and protecting those plants. So while this lowering the wind fetch, it also prevents the plants from being abrased by the sand picked up by the high winds during high wind events. Next, please. All right, just very quickly regarding the air quality program and what we currently doing. So in 2021, we've installed placement of monitors on the species conservation habitats, and we've also redacted a report. That report will soon be available to the public. Will be available on the website. And very recently, we've also expanded our monitoring stations to the exposed lake bed on the north end of the sea. And those sites were basically selected based on feedback and comments from the community. And we've already started collecting data from those base stations, and we're hoping to have a report by September of this year for the north end. And of course, 2022, we'll see this monitoring effort be expanded throughout the Salton Sea. Next, please. So I wanted also to say that we of course, leading a lot of projects, but we also collaborating with the local stakeholders. I really would like to mention the Audubon Bombay Beach Wetland Restoration Project, which would create or enhance existing wetland on the west end of the sea. And we, of course, will be supporting that project. Also, I would like to mention the Desert Shores Channel Restoration Project, of course, at Desert Shores. And we also have provided administering a grant and some technical assistance and a lot of other help to the Salton Sea Authority for the North Lake Pilot Demonstration Project, which is located at the North Shore and roughly 160-acre project. Next, please. So I will briefly mention it earlier on the large map, but we do have some major upcoming projects. So quickly, the North Lake, which is a full lake project, just like the species conservation habitat. So this project, basically, we still have to define the schedule and the cost and also the scope of this project, but it roughly be something that will resemble the species conservation habitat. Given all the priorities that we have, and our resources available at this point, we need to work through this effort one task at a time and make sure we can establish a concrete schedule before we can share it with you. Next, I just wanted to quickly talk about the San Felipe Fen Restoration Project. So again, it's always what we're trying to do is to use the natural environment and provide some value that would, of course, protect human health, but also add the habitat value to it whenever we can. Same with the Wister Unit Marsh bird habitat restoration. So that one specifically is a CDFW Wister wildlife habitat area that we'll undertake this year. The New River expansion project. So it is basically part of the SCH. It's additional acreage. We found that basically we could expand the SCH in a fairly quickly. We think at this point it's technically possible, or we found out that it was technically possible. And so we are currently working on almost doubling the area of the SCH at this point. Now, we will have to work through, again, some of the major issues that we mentioned earlier, such as the land access, but also the water rights and the different landowners. So not only we have the landowner, but sometimes we have leases on top of that. And we've already starting to engage with a geothermal company so that we can make this New River expansion project possible in the incoming years. We already talked about the Bombay Beach restoration projects. And of course, what we have at the south end of the SCH, we have the SCH Vegetation project, where we're working in coordination with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Refuge, but also the hunt clubs in the south end of the sea and IID. Next, please. So North Lake project. So of course, like I mentioned, it's a large habitat project. So what you see right now in orange on the map on the right side is the footprint of the potential location of this future projects. But we don't know yet what would be the exact scope, meaning the size and also characteristics of this project. Will it be 10 feet, 8 feet, 6 feet? We're not sure yet. We're still working on those details. We also have to have access so we can conduct all of our surveys, whether it's environmental, topographic, or geotech surveys. So those are things, work that we have to do. We also have to secure land access and water rights, of course, in order for us to build this project. But we basically looking at first focusing on building a water conveyance system that we can expand and then expand the system of ponds as more money becomes available along the years and also as the seas recedes. Next, please. So this here, I've already talked about that a little bit, but just to remind you, the You can see here that we have at the southern end of the sea, the New River Expansion Project. That's the orange footprint. The purple lines is what defines the SCH, or Species Conservation Habitat Project. And the Vegetation Project is in green at the south end of the sea. And those are currently the project that we're also working on. We also working on the San Felipe Fan restoration project. And so those are where we will be doing a lot of vegetation for that area. Now, I would just want to say that the New River Expansion Project will be aquatic habitats downstream of the SCH, but shallower than the SCH. It will not be up to 10 feet like the SCH is or will be by next year. It will be a lot shallower, but we don't know. We probably think around 3 to 4 feet, but right around that depth. Next, please. So, of course, I couldn't say that we're doing everything. There are a lot of projects happening, and I just wanted to also mention those projects. So IID, of course, is leading the QSA projects. Torres Martinez is also leading a vegetation restoration project where they planted mesquites not long ago and other species. The New River Improvement projects that we proudly providing support through the administration of the grant for the city of Calexico with the state fund, and that's a great project that should start construction this summer. Again, that's really going to help the local community there in the city of Calexico. And we also have the Salt Creek Tamarisk removal that's currently happening. Next, go ahead. And I'll be happy to take on questions with the help of my partners. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vivian. Okay, with that, we will open up for questions or comments that you have specific to the SSMP project, just as Vivian presented past, current, and upcoming projects. So feel free to raise your hand to ask your questions. And I do see Ms. Jasmine Phillips with your hand up. Go ahead.
Thank you. So this is a two-part question about the SCH project. First part is in regards to the 22-acre interception ditch. I would like to know, is that going to be temporary or permanent habitat for pupfish and other fish and birds? Second question is, because the new river is contaminated with selenium, how will this be mitigated or managed to prevent bioaccumulation of selenium in wildlife?
Great questions. So I'll answer the first one first. Yes, the interception ditch will be permanent and will be maintained by IIT. We're currently working with them and with our contractor to make sure that as we maintaining it, we will not disturb wildlife. So that's the function of the interception ditch is twofold. The first one is to capture all the drain water coming in, making sure that it's rerouted around the SCH project. And the second one that's extremely important is to provide connectivity for the pupfish. So the problem is if we have pupfish isolated in each drain, then you make those populations very vulnerable to extinction because you have less genetic variability. So the intention here is to make sure that they're all connected and so that the species can thrive in that environment in the area. Your second question is related to selenium. So I know the state took a very long time to develop the SCH and at least a concept. So just as a reminder, we started the effort back in 2007. We finally got our certification of our environmental documents and permits in 2013. And during that time, basically, we worked a lot with the USGS and the US Fish and Wildlife to make sure that we address the question of selenium. For that reason, it was out of question for us to have fresh water or to lower the risk of freshwater exclusive habitat, meaning we could have recaptured only the New River water and create that habitat. but instead we decided to mix it with salt. So that achieve at least one thing is to prevent the growth of vegetation, which will prevent the accumulation of selenium into the residents of the SCH. So now the risk is not completely eliminated. So that's why we're basically going to monitor it, and we do have our MMAP, monitoring and adaptive management plan. We'll be working with the USGS on basically monitoring, but also our own staff to make sure that selenium is not being accumulated in wildlife, and working right now on a protocol for very sensitive species. Well, we're not actually ourselves, but the USGS is working on a protocol for very sensitive species on how to prevent having to take them in order to sample for selenium. So it's something, it's of course at the forefront of our preoccupation. And we've also, before starting the SCH, we also studied and amassed a lot of knowledge to make sure that we address the selenium issue. So we did the best that we could to address that. And so as far as salinity, and I want to address also the questions that is in the chat there. So the target salinity between 20 and 40, and 20 and 40 parts per 1,000 was targeted to prevent several things. One of them being the growth of vegetation, also prevent mosquitoes or too many mosquitoes from growing in the SCH, and also the accumulation of selenium. Of course, that was a big help, and of course sustain tilapia to allow for the birds to feed onto the SCH in a sustainable way.
Okay, that was very helpful. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. And I don't see any other hands up. However, I do see some questions on our Q&A box. And Vivian, if you want to address the question, and I'll ask the questions from the chat. Will someone be monitoring the air quality as the berms are exposed?
Sure. So just very quickly on that one, we will be basically monitoring the area in general and understanding whether or not basically it is creating a lot of dust in the environment. But also keep in mind that those berms will be stabilized to prevent emission. Additionally to the compaction that it will have, we will also make sure that it is not too emissive. Either it will be protected from wave action, so that should prevent a lot of that dust from being picked up on the exposed side. But we'll be driving. We will treat so that it is not emissive either for the future. So it will be monitored with air quality monitors, but also we'll make sure that it is not something that creates a lot of dust. It would not be good for our habitat either.
Thank you, Vivian. Are there any other questions regarding the Salton Sea Management Program projects? Okay, and I do see another hand up. Can we allow Gerald to unmute?
Thank you. You're working on establishing plants that would grow well to cover the playa.
I'm sorry, are you asking if we are trying to establish plants that would grow on the playa? That's correct, yes.
Are you investigating a wide variety of different plants? When I've gone to Utah, I see a lot of so many different plants growing around the Great Salt Lake. I'm wondering whether these, what do they call them, halophytes, might do well around the Salton Sea.
So I'll let my coworker Yvonne Wilhoff maybe take on that question. But I would love to take all the credits, of course. I would just want to mention, I forgot to mention that this is a real team effort. People that are working really hard on this. And so, yeah, I'm just here, the speaker, of course. So Yvonne, why don't you go ahead and answer the question regarding the halophytes?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Yvonne Wolhoff, and I work for the California Department of Water Resources, and I'm part of the Salton Sea Management Program team. And I want to thank Gerald for his question. So Gerald, you're right. We are working with native halophytic species. And what we did is earlier last year, our team went around the sea and harvested seeds that are found locally within the region, hoping that we can gather seeds that are used to the environment and the high saline conditions. And then we work with botanists to grow the plants. And we have young plants that we're hoping to plant very soon here. And we also had some seed that we had prepared for planting. And that planting began, I think, approximately 2 to 3 weeks ago within one of our locations. So the hope is that by harvesting the seeds locally, that they will perform better and create better habitat value. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah.
And I do see Stephanie Martin with her hand up.
Hi, good evening. Thank you so much for hosting this and inviting the community, of course. And I am with Quantum Consultations, and I did submit a proposal that was evaluated at yesterday's meeting. And I was one of the 3 that didn't meet the criteria about the long-term water importation. So they were going to forward it to y'all. And I'm just wondering, and they mentioned 2 committees. I'm just wondering what's this difference, or who's on the Salton Sea Long Range Planning Committee and what's the other committee? And just so I can get my facts straight here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Martin. James, you want to take a first stab?
Yeah, hi, good evening. James Newcomb, Department of Water Resources, for those of you on the phone. Stephanie, I believe your proposal included some elements that might be applicable to our in-basin evaluation. And so it would be very timely for you to submit that proposal to the CNRA email address, the Salton Sea CNRA email address. And I'll ask that maybe Miguel, if you can type that email address into the Q&A. That would be great. Essentially, the team that you're referring to is the Long Range Plan Committee. It's a collaborative across state agencies, local agencies, and community-based organizations. And the idea is just to have a team that was large enough that it incorporated many of the important perspectives around Salton Sea, but small enough that it would be a functional working team that could work efficiently through all of the steps that need to happen before December. One of those steps is developing a final list of concepts for evaluation for the long range plan. I'll touch on that a little bit more. And right now that period is currently open. As part of our plan, we will have public outreach that occurs that will be aimed at soliciting feedback from the public on what concepts or what features and concepts they might like to see. But in addition to that public process, anybody is welcome to go to the CNRA website and submit a proposal or concept via a template that is provided on the CNRA website. And I think we're going to work to have a link on the Salton Sea CNRA website that is specific to the long range plan at some point, but right now all of our documentation could be found under the quick links section on the homepage for the saltonsea.ca.gov.
Hey, Miguel, I see that there are a lot of questions on the chats. You want to go through them, or do you want me to go through them?
Yes. Let me see. Okay, I'll ask from Ms. Jenny E. Ross, will the lakes created by the North Lake Pilot Project and the full North Lake project contain fresh water?
So, Yvonne, you want to take on the demonstration project?
Sure. So it's not going to be a direct answer. Hello, Jenny. It's nice to see your question in the chat box. And right now, Salton Sea Authority and in partnership with the County of Riverside, they're the leads of the project. They're looking at various water supply options, and they're looking to see, based on those options, what's the water quality of the available water, with the goal in mind of trying to create the most recreational use possible as it is feasible.
And I'd like to comment on the Full North Lake project. It would be a mix of fresh and salt water at the moment. We will, of course, evaluate different options, but the preferred option at the moment would be to mix Salton Sea water with whatever source of fresh water we may have. I don't know if we want to have maybe Paula Marvin restate the questions for the first one. Do you know how windy it was last night and how those living and work locally were impacted? My short answer is no, but I don't know, Yvonne, if you want to comment on that.
So I was trying to do a little bit of research here to provide resources for you. So I may need to get back to you. So if you can provide your email address, that would be helpful. There are a couple efforts underway, and some partners might even be on this call. The Imperial Irrigation District has an air quality monitoring program that's around the sea, and they have a link to their website where you can look up the data. And I believe it includes wind speed, which way the dust is blowing, information like that. Then there is another local wet network that's based out of the schools in the Imperial Valley that Miguel probably could talk about a little bit better than me. And I believe that's called the Ivan Network. And there's a website and an app associated with that. And there's a newer website, to my knowledge, that's based out of the Eastern Coachella Valley. And that's the one that I need to dig around a little bit. I just heard about it last week at the summit. And it compiles air quality information and uploads it to a website in a way that is meaningful for the community members. It's easier to digest. It's not as technical. And to me, sometimes that data could be confusing if there's a lot coming at you. And it's an attempt to distill it in a way that is easier to comprehend. But that one I need to track down.
Yeah, and just to add a little bit more to that, Paula, I actually responded to your questions regarding air quality data or how can you access it. And I just noted or listed a few of resources that are available online for you or for the public to take a closer look from both air quality districts, from the Imperial County Air Pollution Control District and also the South Coast Air Quality Management District. They have different tools or different online tools that you can check the current air quality. Also, there's a website which is saltonseaodor.org that monitors hydrogen sulfide coming from the sea. And this website is actually hosted by South Coast Air Quality Management District as well. And there's another one which Yvonne quickly mentioned, which is the Ivan Network. And these are low-cost sensors that have been placed throughout the region, from the East Coachella Valley and even across the border, with low-cost sensors that give real-time data for you to visit when needed. So probably that you'll find one of those monitors that are that is close to you for you to review, and you can also sign up for alerts if you wish to receive them as well. And regarding knowing how much wind there was last night, I actually live in the area. I live about 25 minutes from the sea itself, and it was quite windy. So it was quite an event that happened last night. So definitely the team is looking at ways that we can address those emissions coming from the sea, and that's the one of the main reasons that we have multiple projects happening to address the emissivity of the Salton Sea. And also to follow up on some of your questions, for you to keep yourself and your family safe during this event, I'll highly encourage that you would visit some of these online resources and subscribe to them, and for you to be informed of what's going on. And also regarding monitors at schools, I know the Air Quality Management District, it's looking at under their AB 617 program to the possibility, if they haven't already incorporated some of these monitors to measure air quality at school sites, specifically on the East Coachella Valley. So we can ask our colleagues at the Air Quality Management District for an update on that, and we can follow up with you. And I know also that the IVAN network, which is hosted by Comité Cívico del Valle, they do have some of these monitors located at schools. So okay, so with that, if we can bring our slides up, please. Thank you, Josh. Okay, and moving on to our next item, and I'll be presenting this section for you all. So again, my name is Miguel Hernandez. I'm the Public Affairs Officer with the California Natural Resources Agency, and I'll be providing this quick update on Chapter 3 and 4, which is partnerships and community engagement. If we can go ahead and hit the next slide, please. Thank you. Okay, so as we've been hearing throughout the initial part of our presentation today, the Salton Sea team, it's really focused on creating or enhancing our existing partnerships with stakeholders, tribal governments, local, state, and federal agencies to achieve and fulfill the goals of the 10-year plan and even beyond with the long-range plan. So timely and meaningful engagement with these partners and also the public, it's important so we can get the development of these projects around the Salton Sea. The team has been is dedicated with public engagement and has increased the opportunities to solicit feedback and also share information, just like this meeting today, for you to know what's in the report and also be up to date with current projects and the program priorities. So we've dedicated additional times and additional events such as this one again for us to share the information and for you to be informed and perhaps have a little bit of a better understanding of the projects that have been taking place of the Salton Sea and trying to help you get ready for the upcoming meeting, which is the State Water Board meeting, where this information will be presented, as it was mentioned by my colleague Mario, that we have to present this report to the Water Board. So we're doing this to let you know more about what the current projects are and also acknowledge our partners that have been instrumental in making these projects happen. If we can hit the next slide, please. Thank you. Okay, so just a quick recap of the 2021 events or meetings that happened. The Community Engagement Committee held meetings, about 4 meetings last year, held every 2 months. And this community engagement committee focuses on how we best reach to our communities, how we best get to inform our communities, and in partnership with local community-based organization and non-governmental organization, together we have been successful at reaching out to community members to inform about these events and about projects, and provided with more information about the efforts happening at the sea. Also, the Long Range Plan Committee met 3 times. There was a kickoff meeting in August and September, and there were also 2 initial kickoff meetings for the Long Range Plan at the end of the year, towards middle of December or so. So that committee has been meeting since then, and we'll continue to meet till the end of the year for that further development of the Long Range Plan. Also, regarding the National Environmental Policy Act, or the NEPA process, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, which is the partnering agency that is working with the state team released the phase 1 10-year plan project description for public comment in March of last year. Also, the independent review panel, they've met in October of 2021, as well as a couple of occasions in person in November at both Riverside and Imperial County to visit the region. And also the team also hosted a tour with some of our partners in December to tour the species conservation habitat site and kind of get a first glance, or a tangible visual progress of the work that's being done at the species conservation habitat project site. Okay, if we can hit the next slide, please. Okay, so this is a calendar that perhaps some of you might have seen already. If not, this is a projected calendar of public engagement. This includes our committee meetings for the engagement committee, for the long-range plan committee, and as well on the first top line, it's community meetings or workshop, just like today. We actually held one on March 30th. And this is the second one, which you see reflected again on the top line for April. And we're aiming to have more of these events happening in the future to continue to inform you about the projects and what the program it's currently at, and keep you up to date with relevant information for you to share. The additional lines that you see here, again, it's the Long Range Plan Committee, also the Independent Review Panel that again just hosted a meeting yesterday evening. And we'll be meeting again in May, June, and so on until they turn in the final report to the state team that would inform the long range plan. Also, there's a science committee that met mid-February, and you can have these schedule as reference. I do have to point out though that as this schedule that you see right now might be slightly different than the one you would find on the annual report, which is found on chapter 4. There were some slight changes into the public schedule, but it's quite minimum. So just so you know. If we can hit the next slide, please. Okay. And based on ongoing discussions with community-based groups, with community members, those advocates that keep coming out at our meetings, there has been identified a need for a community amenities document. This document, it's being led by Better Work Group. The state contracted a Better Work Group to facilitate the community engagement towards achieving feasible amenity projects that address the needs of the communities and the state funding parameters. So the Better Work Group will be conducting focused outreach with local communities, governmental and non-governmental organizations around the sea to help us identify the amenities that could be developed within the Salton Sea Management Program, its 10-year plan or the long-range plan, and even further, if help us identify potential funding if those amenities might not fall within the parameters of the Salton Sea plan, help us identify other state and federal programs to be able to make that happen. This document, the Community Amenities Strategy document, will be developed in collaboration with community members, with local community-based organizations, so we can help create this robust strategy document. If we can hit the next slide, please. Okay, and this has been some of the feedback we've received before, and perhaps this is something that Better Work Group has also reviewed from existing documents and feedback that has been received or sent to the state, or just another other community meetings, or perhaps documents that have been put together that reflect on needs and community amenities around the sea. On the list that we see here, trail bike paths, boat ramps, these are physical things that can be incorporated in a way to current projects of the 10-year plan, and also into the design of the long-range planning efforts. So these are again physical things that could help improve the quality of experience at the sea, and also help us improve equitable access. So the team is looking at ways to incorporate these amenities that we've heard in the past. Next slide, please. And also this added co-benefits that could potentially be incorporated into the project, such as local hiring, training local residents, educational opportunities, environmental programming, and about the Salton Sea, more air quality monitors. I think we've heard that, or we saw that a lot from on the Q&A box just right now. Also improve public health research and outcomes, and also improve climate benefits. So these are additional co-benefits that could be tied together to our projects. And again, the team is definitely looking at ways of incorporating this, and Better Work Group will take a closer look and coming up with creative solutions to be able to achieve this co-benefits either inside or outside the Salton Sea Management Program. Okay, and if we can hit the next slide, please. Okay, and that concludes my part of the presentation, and I'll open it up for questions. Okay, and I do see a hand up by Jazz Phillips.
Thank you. First, I'd like to ask a question. Josh, is it possible to go back to the slide where it lists all the partners in the SSMP project? I have a comment on that. Please.
Yeah, give me just a second.
Sure.
And that's slide 32.
So I noticed on the slide, it was really encouraging to see all the names and the collaboration and teamwork. And I noticed that the Eco-Media Compass was not on the list. I volunteer with the Eco-Media Compass, and we're a nonprofit. We're local. We're based in the West Shores. We've been helping the Salton Sea for over a decade, and it was 6 years ago that we worked with locals and advocates in Desert Shores to get the Desert Shores project really moving and off the ground. And I believe that it would be very appropriate if the Eco-Media Compass was included on this list. So moving forward, I would really love to see that. And I hope to see that in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Jasmine.
Can I just point one thing out really fast? So Jasmine, you're so right. Eco-Media Compass supports us tremendously, and and Eco-Media Compass is on our various committees, and they're actually on the list, but it's not that obvious. It's a slash with Save Our Sea. So I don't know if it was just, there's a lot of names on there, but you're definitely right. Eco-Media Compass has provided a lot of support. We're very grateful for all the time that's invested in supporting the program.
Okay. Thanks, Yvonne. I see that now. The little video icon of the speaker was covering that. Thank you so much for pointing that out, Yvonne. I appreciate it.
No problem, no problem. But you're right. Should be on the list, and it's on there, but kind of hidden.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and with that, I'll also add that Eco-Media Compass is an active member of the engagement committee and also the long range plan committee. So definitely great partners. Okay, and I do see another hand up by Luis Lopez.
Hello, good evening. Luis Lopez from Comité Cívico del Valle. First, I want to thank the SSMP team for hosting this meeting, in order to maximize the state's community outreach efforts. And overall, it was a great idea to summarize the annual report and projects for community members and allowing, us in the community to participate. Thank you, guys. My question is, has the local hiring commitment been implemented in the current projects, or is it going to start to be implemented in the future projects? I wasn't sure. Thank you.
I can answer that to the slide that was shared about community amenities strategy and then hand it off to the state team. Hi, Luis. My name is Sarah Friedman, and I'm with Better World Group Advisors. So that slide was what we have heard back so far. and that what our next step is researching, what is possible within existing programs to make some of those things happen. So we just wanted to show what has surfaced so far and what we've heard from community leaders to date, in an effort to not ask the same people for the same, like to kind of give a starting point of what we heard, so we're not just kind of asking the same people for information over and over again. And I'll hand it off maybe to Yvonne to like explain how the state has in the past been thinking about this.
So hello, Luis, this is Yvonne, and that's a great question. And I'm gonna do my best to answer it. And then I'm not sure if anyone else from our team would like to add anything else. So this is at the forefront of our minds. It's something that we've heard the whole time I've been part of this program, which is approaching 3 years, but I know that this comment was received even before my time. So to the extent possible, we incorporate this. We'll probably get to a slide later in the presentation that acknowledges that even within our own team, we've been hiring people that are either from the region or living within the region. And then also for our vegetation enhancement project, the contractor that we've hired is local. So when we are able to, we always have that in the front of our minds, and we factor that into our planning if it is possible. And I don't know if anyone else wants to add to that description, but that's just what I can offer.
Thank you.
Yeah, and Luis, this is Vivian from the Department of Water Resources, and I just want to let you know that Kiewit, the contractor that we've hired to build the SCH, is being asked to prioritize hiring locally. They've also organized several workshops to make sure that they could get the talent as much as possible locally. And of course, like Yvonne mentioned, our ongoing effort to try to hire local talents to work at the Salton Sea. There are many reasons for that. Personally, I think it's really important to get that knowledge, the local knowledge, and so that's something that's definitely we're prioritizing and trying to hire the locals as much as possible.
And then there's one other aspect for our vegetation enhancement project, where you were able to source the bales from within the region too, the straw bales, and I believe there's also some Bermuda grass bales as well.
And our contractor also, I believe, is local.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're local.
Thank you, guys.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Luis. Are there any other questions regarding community amenities or partnerships? And again, you can find these on chapter 3 and 4 of the annual report. Okay, so moving on to our next section, I would like to bring my colleague James Newcomb to present on this slides. Thank you.
So good evening, everyone. Some of you might be hearing or seeing me for the first time in a meeting, but I do recognize many of your names and faces. My name is James Newcomb. I serve as Assistant Deputy Director for the Department of Water Resources. I was fortunate to join the Salton Sea Management Program in September, and I'm happy tonight to be talking about our current planning activities and next steps. And just for reference back to the annual plan, these topics cover chapters 5 and 6 in that plan. Next slide. Okay, so we'll start covering the planning section with our 10-year plan. Most of the work that happens under that 10-year plan requires some federal approval, either because there is a federal permit involved or because it happens on federal land. And because of that, we are entering an environmental review process required by the National Environmental Policy Act, which people usually just refer to as NEPA, and which I'll refer to as we move forward. Our team is working with the Army Corps as the federal lead agency to prepare an environmental assessment for this 10-year plan. This environmental assessment will provide the federal compliance we need for up to 30,000 acres of habitat and dust suppression projects. It also will allow us to have coverage for a watershed management plan. And the reason that that's important is because that will allow us to qualify for additional federal financial assistance. Some of the projects you've already heard about tonight, but briefly, just for clarity, this document will cover creation of aquatic habitat, Alamo River, New River, Whitewater River, and as previously mentioned, the North Lake Demonstration Project, the Desert Shores Channel Restoration Project, the Audubon Wetland Restoration Project, as well as our remaining dust suppression and habitat projects. The combination of these projects, or the evaluation of these projects into one document, really is to allow us to accelerate our work and catch up to our required timeline. The reason I mention this now is because if you'd like to be involved in the review and comment of these projects, just know that in the coming weeks, the draft environmental assessment is going to be released to the public for review. And upon release, the Corps is going to schedule 2 to 3 public meetings for your participation. And then just in the interest of timeline, the Corps plans to have a final document in the fall of 2022. Next slide. So the 10-year plan requires early implementation of projects to offset impacts that are happening now. We now shift gears to another planning process to discuss the long-range plan. And the long-range plan is aimed at alleviating impacts associated with the anticipated long-term recession of the sea. The plan will evaluate a broad range of updated or entirely new concepts that rely on in-basin water sources. And eventually, as discussed in the Q&A, if some of you caught it, eventually we'll incorporate an evaluation of projects that include water importation. And I'll touch on when that will happen in a subsequent slide. Our objectives are carried forward from Fish and Game Code and State Water Resource Control Board stipulated order. No major surprises here. We are shooting to create large amounts of resilient aquatic habitat. We are aiming to improve air quality, and we are aiming to improve water quality. While we have these as our core obligations, we also know we must incorporate several other important aspects into our planning to deliver a plan that is actionable. And these important areas include topics like preservation of tribal heritage, economic opportunities, and recreational features. And I will build on how we evaluate our ability to meet these objectives and also to incorporate these other important aspects into our plan in the next slide, please. So I wanted to focus a little bit of time on the evaluation criteria because I think they're the heart really of the long range plan. So I'm going to cover a little bit of detail here. We will have several criteria to evaluate all aspects of concepts within the plan. These criteria are adapted from federal criteria used in the development of large water infrastructure projects. They span 4 categories, and I will define each of them briefly. So effectiveness measures how well a concept performs for an individual objective. Thinking back to the last slide and using air quality as an example, we're likely to have a metric for quantifying remaining exposed playa. So keeping that as an example, a concept that had the least remaining exposed playa would be one that would be most effective in terms of meeting that particular air quality objective. And then that's just one measure of air quality. We hope to have other metrics as well. Jumping into acceptability. Acceptability incorporates measures that I highlighted on the previous slide. This is where important items like economy will be explored. For the concept of economy, we know that job creation is important. And so using that as an example, concepts that allow for the most stable long-term jobs would score higher for that measure of acceptability. Moving on to completeness. Completeness is a check to ensure that all of the core objectives are sufficiently addressed. Core objectives being aquatic habitat, air quality, and water quality. And that metric allows us to identify shortcomings for any particular concept and gives us an opportunity to identify features that might make a particular concept more complete. And then lastly, and probably one of the more complex categories, efficiency includes elements like cost, risk, and water supply. Just simply using cost as a metric, projects that deliver the higher benefits relative to cost would score the best for that metric of efficiency. Okay, so that covers really the heart of our evaluation criteria. I'm going to jump into the timeline a little bit and then talk about the process for when we'll be evaluating specific concepts in the next slide. Okay, so as I mentioned in the previous slide, the long-range plan is intended to be very broad in that it considers previous concepts, new concepts that rely on in-basin water sources, and it eventually will also consider concepts that involve water importation by way of an independent review panel that's conducting a feasibility study. So we're at the point in our schedule now where we have a draft set of evaluation criteria and a partial set of in-basin concepts for evaluation. We're working towards finalizing our number of in-basin concepts by May, and then we'll begin our evaluation of those in-basin concepts. Concurrently, an independent review panel, some of you I know attended the meeting last night, is investigating the feasibility of water importation projects. And they're currently working on a lot of the analysis that will be important for us to have when we get to the point in September, where we will receive a report documenting all of their findings of their review. And at that point, we will incorporate the findings into our evaluation. And then between September and December, we will finalize the long-range plan and deliver it to the State Water Resources Control Board. Because I think it's important to point out the delivery of the long-range plan is a milestone that starts at the or that's targeted for the end of this year. But beyond that, there will still be an environmental documentation and formal alternatives analysis that begins. Really, the due date for the long-range plan will be the kickoff of that subsequent environmental documentation process, which is a lengthy review process, and will review sort of a second round of higher detail level analysis and refining of viable concepts. Next slide. So I think we have this slide here just to point out that the Salton Sea Management Program spans across 3 state agencies, the California Natural Resource Agency, the Department of Fish and Wildlife, and the Department of Water Resources. And we are in the process of expanding our team as represented by some of the new faces you've seen tonight. We're currently recruiting for key positions to help advance the state's commitment to deliver projects at Salton Sea. I say currently, but really I'm hoping advertisements for some key engineering positions will go out as early as next week. Most of these new positions are going to be located in the Salton Sea region. For instance, so 4 of the 6 recent hires are located within the region, and we plan to fill the engineering positions down in the Salton Sea region as well in the coming months. Next slide. Oh, and then I did want to apologize that this slide, because of its size, didn't format well to have a Spanish and English version on one slide. But nevertheless, even the English version, I wasn't able to go over in detail, but it is available in the annual report in chapter 5 on page 43 for those of you that want to take a closer look. So as we expand our staffing, we also expand our demands. The team is growing towards meeting those demands of completing current projects now, as we concurrently plan for future projects and also plan for the operations and maintenance that is required to maintain those projects as they're completed. In 2022, we will also be increasing our partnering with local and federal groups and our engagement with the public. And we will continue to construct and hopefully complete some of the projects currently underway. We will complete planning for new habitat and dust suppression projects with the goal of catching up to our 2024 requirement. And then building on the NEPA documentation for the 10-year plan, we will build a comprehensive schedule that takes us through our obligation under the phase 1 2028. And then along the lines of what we discussed earlier about a vision beyond 2028, we will be submitting our long-range plan, which takes us beyond that 2028 timeline and allows us to begin a subsequent environmental documentation phase. Next slide. So this slide essentially closes out our presentation tonight. I wanted to mention again that this meeting is a precursor to the State Water Resources Control Board workshop being held on April 20th. This slide includes detailed information on how to submit comments and receive more information about next week's meeting. This information is also available at the URL posted below on this slide. And if you're scrambling to take a screenshot of the slide, this presentation is also available at the CNRA Salton Sea website. At this point, I'd like to just say on behalf of SSMP, we want to thank the public for tuning into this presentation. I recognize a lot of the names, which means a lot of you are joining several of our meetings. We thank you for your continued presence. We also wanted to take a moment to thank all of our partners again that have worked with us to accomplish our work in 2021. We recognize that we cannot achieve the state's objectives without a continued partnership, and we look forward to continuing our collaboration to accomplish more critical work in 2022. At this point, I want to kick it back over to Miguel for questions, but I think maybe we should just stay on this slide for a moment for those that want to either copy down the link or get more information about the upcoming State Water Resources Control Board workshop. Thank you.
Thank you, James. And yes, we will be uploading this presentation and the actual video into the Salton Sea website too. Also, we have shared this information over the Salton Sea newsletter. If you haven't subscribed to that, I highly encourage you do at the saltonsea.ca.gov. Yeah, you'll find a link there to subscribe and receive these kinds of updates and meeting information, project updates. So, and you'll find all this on our website, or you can go to the Water Board website under their Salton Sea program. You'll find additional information on how to submit the comments to the annual report. And also, if you wish to participate at the April 20th workshop, there's a virtual speaker card that you have to fill in order for you to receive a link and be able to have the unmute option or capabilities during the actual meeting and during the public comments. So at this point, I'll open it up for questions, either related to James' presentation, or this is also the option or the time when if you wish to address the team on something that was not discussed during our meeting, we'll do our best to provide it with an answer or get back to you with an answer. James?
Yeah, hi, Miguel. Just because I've had so many typos in my previous responses, I wanted to answer one of Jenny Ross's questions live. So the question is in regards to, I'll just read it. During the last phase of the process for evaluation of both in-basin and water importation long-range proposals and completion of a long-range plan between September and December 2022, will one of the criteria utilized by the CNRA and the SSMP be the need to select a carbon neutral or preferably a carbon negative plan? So thank you for the question. I know that greenhouse gas emissions is important to several members of the Salton Sea community. It's also important to Department of Water Resources and the California Natural Resources Agency and Department of Fish and Wildlife. We will have a criteria, or likely possibly two criteria, in the long-range plan evaluation that evaluate a project's greenhouse gas emissions, but the scale of that criteria is not yet determined. We will be setting the scale of that criteria with development of the long-range plan committee. The one you suggest of selecting a carbon neutral or preferably a carbon negative plan is an interesting idea. I'll take that comment back to the team. I did want to mention that Department of Water Resources has as part of our strategic plan, is interested in sort of minimizing our carbon footprint. And we do have a division within our department that is dedicated to sort of how we evaluate greenhouse gas emissions and carbon footprint for any project. And that's the group I've been working with to make sure that we set an appropriate scale that's consistent with the department's other planning metrics. So we'll take that scale and your information and provide a proposal back to the Long Range Planning Committee for further refinement. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, James, for providing that very thorough response. Is there more questions? Are there any more questions from members of the public? Okay, I do see another hand up. Esther Bejarano. And I think you should be able to unmute yourself.
Yes, hi, Miguel, can you hear me?
Yes.
Apologies for the background noise. I'm out in the field. But I want to take the opportunity. My name is Esther Bejarano. I am part of the team of Comité Cívico del Valle. We are also asthma educators, and we are providing education, outreach, and engagement to the community at large. I do want to take the time to share that, public health component is crucially important. We lost a life weekend, Bombay Beach, a 5th grader had an asthma attack. And so, I think this work is so important. These meetings, these public meetings are crucially, vitally important. And saving the Salton Sea and the public health is also very, very important. So any questions anybody might have, we have partners on the line on air quality, on how to start a school flag program, how to come into the schools and educate them on not only on when you have asthma, but preventing asthma and other health issues in our communities, right? Communities that have, schools and communities that have this exposed playa nearby. And so I want to thank everybody for being here, and I also wanted to share that that life that left us is they're very preventable. Air quality emissions, air quality emissions, and poor air quality days are asthma triggers to a vulnerable population, especially those small lungs that are still developing and trying to develop and grow and become an adult in adult life. So I just wanted to share that with everyone. Again, thank you for your time, and thank you for the partnership.
Thank you, Esther. Thank you for bringing that up. And can you share what would be the best way for community members to reach out to you or to Comité?
Definitely, we have our website. Please visit our website. We also have a COE, COEE. Please visit us there. We can see all of the schools that are listed on our school flag program in Imperial County. As mentioned earlier, a lot of these low-cost monitors that are community-driven monitors are located in schools and rooftops, and so we can monitor the air quality, and then teachers and community members are able to reduce that exposure to harmful air pollutants and stay indoors depending on the day or the time of the day, morning, afternoon. My direct email address is also Esther, ESTHER @CCB House, along with the colleagues here that are on the line. We are happy to answer any questions and support anybody that is interested in creating a safe indoor environment. At times we cannot change the air quality as we speak, but we come into the homes and help them create a healthy indoor sanctuary, and to stay safe indoors. Thank you.
Thank you, Esther. Okay, are there any other questions? Okay. I do see a couple of questions on the Q&A box that are perhaps being answered by my colleagues. So,
Stephanie, I see your hand raised. Did you have a question? You should be able to unmute.
Thank you, Josh.
Yes, thank you. I just am trying to wrap my mind around the land access agreements issue. So I just kind of wanted to speak on this as a kind of collective brainstorm, if you will. When thinking about, like, proposals for the basin solutions here and the criteria and everything like that, what are we looking, I'm trying to think of how we can kind of like convince the majority of the land and owners to be like, oh yeah, that's great, of course I will. What are we looking at? Like right of way access of that portion of their land, just working on their land and
just, having them privately maintain it, or what's preferred here, I guess, is what I'm asking here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Stephanie. Perhaps James?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Stephanie. And again, this is James Newcomb, Department of Water Resources. I wish I could provide a succinct and thorough response to that question, but there is not a one-size-fits-all response to a given project. To date, I've worked on probably about 40,000 acres of habitat projects across the state, probably across 200 different parcels. And there are unique challenges that are associated with each of those individual parcels, sometimes dealing with the specific nature of the parcel, whether it's aquatic or dry, or has a specific activity that needs to be maintained on that parcel. And so really the difficulty lies in being able to retain the unique values of an individual parcel that are important to the property owner, while also achieving the objectives of the state, while also staying within the lines of the state's abilities for liability. I know that I can't provide, I know that answer is not sufficient to the question that you've asked. But as we ramp up and add more resources to our team, one of the items that needs to be worked on by one of those new members is looking at our current real estate strategy and identifying opportunities for efficiency. The team that's been working on real estate issues to date is a very accomplished and powerful team, but I do think there needs to be a new look sort of at how the state conducts its business and enters into land access agreements to perhaps identify and unearth new efficiencies. One of those things might be programmatic agreements. So thank you for pointing out sort of the critical path in our restoration work. And we just know that it is our priority to continue to improve the ways that we are able to enter land access agreements.
Thank you, James. Are there any other questions before we close our workshop tonight? Okay, I do see another hand up. Mr. Gerald.
I wanted to thank the team. I really appreciate the way the State Water Resources Department is having so much input from so many different people rather than so many projects where one agency looking at one issue finds one consultant, one contractor, and comes up with their solution and doesn't listen to us. And I just really appreciate all the different people involved. And is the water resource, because I've worked in energy for 30 years, and the Water Resources Department's involved in everything. They're a major electric utility, and they look at conservation and they look at the environment. Are they going to be considering, since desalination is such an issue, is the Water Resources Department, this could be a big demonstration project for state water resources, using renewable energy and desalination as some part of this demonstration project.
Thank you, Gerald.
Thank you.
James, you want to?
Yeah, so I can't speak to a specific concept at this point just because I'm behind in my review of material, but I know there are concepts that involved some element of desalinization for the long range plan. Gerald, and thank you for your question, and I also wanted to recognize that I'm really happy to be part of a multi-agency, multifaceted team.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Tom Septon.
Yep, did put this question in the Q&A, but wanted to ask it because it might get missed. To the last person's comment, desalination at the Salton Sea has been extensively studied, and there's plenty of data available to know that it is feasible to do with the available renewable energy sources at the southeast end of the Salton Sea. The data is there. The testing has been done on the ground, not just on paper, but on the ground. It's real. My question is, what's the implementation timeframe and anticipated locations for any future large-scale aquatic habitat projects following up on the SCH project at the New River? And how does the state plan to come into compliance with the stipulated order requirement for 50% aquatic habitat and the amount of acreage that was stipulated in that order, which is probably going to be on the order of 15,000 acres. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Septon. Vivian?
Yeah, sure. I'll take a crack at it, Tom. Thank you for your question. So if you look at our 10-year plan, we kind of laid out the areas that we'll be targeting for the habitat. So those are focused around what we perceived back then as the source of fresh water, and also where the topography would allow us to build those habitat around the New River, the Whitewater stormwater channel, and the Alamo River. So those are 3 areas where we planning on concentrating most of our habitat projects. Now, and then also, if you look at our work plan that followed our 10-year plan document, we kind of went through the steps of what will need to happen in order to get those done. So just like the SCH, right now, before we go to the expansion of the SCH, we build the water infrastructure that would allow us to expand the SCH. We were thinking about, okay, let's wait to see until the sea can recede, so it will be easier for us to build. But right now we're contemplating building in the wet potentially. There's still a little bit of testing to be done, but that's kind of the plan is. So if you think that we'd be almost doubling the SCH, and then after that going after the North Lake, and shortly after that, and I was like almost immediately, we're gonna have to start thinking about the Alamo. That's how we're planning on completing our 15,000 acre for the 10-year plan. That's separate from the long range, of course.
Thank you. Appreciate the answer, Vivian.
And I do see Arturo's hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to, yeah, and it looks like I'm in the dark. Apologies for that. Yeah, Tom, I just wanted to add to Vivian's response. We laid out our game plan on how we're going to get to catch up to our acreage target in our annual report. That's laid out in chapter 6 of our annual report, Tom. And our goal right now, albeit it's very ambitious, but I think it's achievable, and we need to get a lot of things done this year. Our goal is to be caught up by the end of 2024, and with, through various by completing various projects that we identified in our annual report.
Thank you. Appreciate the answer.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you both, Arturo and Vivian. And thank you, Tom, for your question. Okay, are there any other questions from members of the public? Okay. Seeing none, I would like to thank James. I do see your hand up.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Miguel. There was one more question from Paula Marvin in the chat. And now I turned on my light because Arturo was in the dark, and I think feel like I'm at a dentist office right now. But the question, I'll just read it, is how is the water quality monitored currently. So those of us who go to the sea know we are safe in it and around it. I'm not aware of a water quality monitoring network that could provide that answer. So I apologize, but the monitoring and implementation plan that's currently under review will determine additional monitoring networks that are required to support our evaluation of our projects. And the hope is that, well, not the hope, but as Department of Water Resources is actually required to share water quality data in a public venue. And so we would have done that otherwise, but we will, as we implement new continuous quality monitor networks to evaluate our restoration work, we will also make those publicly available.
Thank you, James. And I do see another hand up. Caller 0469. I think that's Johnny. Should be able to unmute yourself.
Johnny on Wheels. Hello, everybody. I'm Johnny on Wheels. I'm in Brawley, California. I'm a landscaper. I'm doing maintenance and doing greening projects. My question to all of you is, you talk about the future and whatever, but how many trees have you planted in 2020, 2021? And how many are you going to plant in 2022? I'm not talking about little seeds. I'm talking about a full-grown tree that can mature in 2 or 3 years. Where's that plan?
Thank you, Johnny. I think it's a really good question. And I'll invite my colleagues. Tanya, I do see your camera's on.
Hi, Johnny. Big full trees, it would depend on where you're talking about with the habitat. They take a lot of water, they take a lot of access. We want to make sure that the vegetation that we're putting around the Salton Sea is vegetation that will actually grow and thrive there. Native vegetation works best, and planting of big trees that are already established isn't as beneficial in some areas, but we'll look into planting trees where we can, and we definitely want to use them as shade structures in certain locations like mesquites and those. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. And you're the lady, you were saying that you went around collecting the seeds. Is that what you said?
I was not the one collecting seeds. Some staff within CDFW collect seeds.
I was happy to hear that she's collecting native seeds. And one more question. The new river's already flowing, and what animals and what's growing, what vegetation's growing around the new river? Have you guys done research with that?
Oh, of course. We've looked at the actual species that are dependent on the river, and the whether that's plant, flora, or fauna. And you can look at some of that within the environmental assessments that have been done. But if you want to know directly, you can send an email, and we can talk directly after this meeting.
Okie doke. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Johnny. Okay, and I do see a couple of hands up. Gerald?
It just so happens what we were just talking about, native plants. The other day, I was looking up a Sahara Forest project, which I'm familiar with as a solar saltwater greenhouse system that was being built. But the new article on it is a method that was developed in Africa where they find shrubs that thrive. And the local farmers are trained to trim the shrubs into trees. So they grow tall and branch and cover the land. And it was just, it was taking the native plants. And I live in the desert. If I leave things alone, they want to be shrubs close to the ground. My neighbor who knows trees, he trims these and they grow tall and they have a canopy. And I'll send someone the link to that, but it's an amazing way to use native plants. And this probably happens in the wild where animals, forage and trim the plant naturally and create canopy trees. So something in addition to permaculture is not what you grow, but how you train it and trim it. Thank you.
Thank you, Gerald. We're always looking for new and interesting ways to do things and to look to see what has been done before. So please send that link to the CNRA email address at the end of the slides. Appreciate that.
And Maria, you do see your hand up. Want to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to add to Johnny's question about native trees, and I did want to call to attention, and it was brought up during Vivian's section on our partner projects that SSMP are not collaborating with yet, but I wanted to bring to attention, Torres Martinez did plant 1,782 trees over 22 acres of exposed playa in December 2021. And that was in partnership with the California Conservation Corps. And you know, we're closely looking at that to see if there's some other opportunities around the sea where we could do something similar. So I just wanted to bring that to Johnny's attention and the attendees at the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam. And yeah, you're correct. Encourage those to find out a little bit more about the project being led by Torres Martinez for those trees that were planted. And I do see Jazz Phillips hand up.
Thank you. So just briefly, I wanted to address Paula's question about concerns around the water quality. That's something I've looked into and researched in the past and continue to do so. I found it helpful to go on the State Water Resources Control Board website. They have some water quality data on there, as well the Regional Water Quality Control Board organization. They used to monitor the water and take samples on a monthly basis. That is no longer happening. However, they could have some water quality information on their website as well.
Thank you for sharing that, Jasmine. Okay, and perhaps her last comment, I do see Johnny's hand up again. Johnny, you should be able to mute.
Yeah, hello.
Yes.
Thank you for the information. I'm glad to hear about that. I've been going to the meeting, Salton Sea meetings for several years, and I never heard that trees were being planted. And that's awesome. And I'd like to see that project. I'd like to follow up and learn how they're developing, how they're, you know, surviving in that environment. That's awesome. Thank you for that information.
Thank you, Johnny. Okay, and I do see some other additional questions that are coming into the Q&A box. If we can leave the Zoom open for a minute or two to allow the team to respond to those that we can respond. In case we don't get to your question, you can send us an email to the Salton Sea email, which is cnra-saltonsea@resources.ca.gov. You'll find this on our website as well, saltonsea.ca.gov. You'll find that there. And we'll follow up with response to your questions. And so yeah, if we can just leave it open for a minute or two so we can respond to those questions. And with that, I think we can conclude our workshop or Salton Sea workshop. I really appreciate those that were able to participate. I appreciate all the questions that came in. I think we had a really good conversation, and definitely look forward to seeing you at future meetings. I know most of you have been attending our meetings, and definitely welcome those that are joining for the first time. Looking forward to your continuous engagement and continue to provide it with good relevant information for you to take home and take with others, and help us share what's being done at the Salton Sea, and perhaps invite others to these spaces. Looking forward to having you join the water board meeting on the 20th. Also, I want to extend a thank you comment to our partners for hosting the Salton Sea Summit last week. And also I saw some of our community members that were participating at the summit, also at the community forum. So thank you to our partners for hosting that important event. And with that, perfect. Thank you, Joshua, for bringing this up. This is where you can check out our website, saltonSea.ca.gov, and that's the email that if you wish to contact us regarding the engagement committee, the long range planning committee, those documents that are out for review. Also, if you wish to submit your comments on the annual report, you can also share it with us through that email address. So again, with that, we'll conclude our meeting. Thank you for participating, and looking forward to see you all soon. Thank you all.
Did you want me to leave it open for a little while, or do you feel like all the questions have been answered?
Let's see.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
we
think-
have two more questions. No, wait, we have, yeah, one's being answered now. We have one more from Paula.
Thanks, team, so much. Really appreciate the great answers and the just really respectful engagement. You guys are just so grateful to you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks,
Tim,
Lisa.
Do you want to maybe mention the flag program with CCV related to Paula's question? That's the only thing that I'm aware of, that basically we're trying to let people know when the air quality, not the storm, but when the air quality is not suitable for outdoor activities.
Right. So the Comité Cívico del Valle, a community-based group based in Raleigh that works in the region, has the school flag program that's implemented in multiple schools throughout the region. So that's a way for community residents, and specifically those that attend those schools, have immediate access, by the way of looking at a colored flag that it's being raised on a daily basis. If it's green, then it's a good day to be out there, and if it's red, or it could be yellow, orange, or red, then it's recommended to stay indoors. So that's a program that's actually being implemented by Comité Cívico del Valle, which is a contractor to the Department of Water Resources, and they have that active program there. And also, as mentioned before, the Ivan network has active monitors throughout the region, which you might want to check out and take a closer look at those that are close to your neighborhood, and perhaps subscribe to receive notifications when a dust wind or a bad air quality event happens. Okay, I think we can close our meeting.
Okay, great. Have a good
Thank you all.
evening. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Josh.
Thank you.